All right, so we are in AP Calculus. Today's date is Thursday, September 26, 9/26/19. All right, so we are done with the self-check. We gave ourselves 8 minutes to do 4 questions, and then we don't have this on the backside. I fix it for next year, but I'll hand out self-check 2.2 after we go through this one. All right, so if our f of x is equal to x to the power of 3 halves, then we're taking the derivative, and then we're going to plug in 4. That is what that's saying. So first we need to find f prime, and then we'll plug in 4. F prime of x, this is going to be powerhouse. Powerhouse, the 3 halves comes down in front, so it's going to be 3 halves x, and it's no longer to the power of 3 halves. I'm going to subtract 1. If I'm subtracting 1, I'm really subtracting 2 over 2, and that's going to be 1 half. So x to the power of 1 half. And if I want to rewrite that slightly differently, I can say it's going to be 3 square root of x, all of that divided by 2. X to the 1 half is 1, or the square root. And then finally, I'm going to plug in 4, f prime of 4. When I plug in 4, I'm going to get 3 times the square root of, I'm plugging in right here, 4. All of this divided by 2. So first I do square root of 4, which is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1, so it's just 3. Correct answer is C. Thumbs up, thumbs down. All right. What were the mistakes, Dago?
For that, I guess. I just put -3.
Okay. Gio? Okay. Do you guys both feel comfortable doing a similar type of problem? Give me a fist of 5. How comfortable do you feel instead of just binary?
Yeah, just like need to review.
Okay. So 3, 4, you're at a 4, Gio? 2? Okay. Let's do number 2. So if f of x is equal to this guy, then we need to take the derivative and plug in 0. Another way of asking this is, what is f prime of 0? That's what it's really asking. So when I do this, I'm in powerhouse because I see a power. So if I'm in powerhouse, I know that I'm going to do doubter, which is going to bring this down in front, and then I have to worry about dinner later. So here I go, f prime of x. I'm bringing the 4 down in front, so there it is, and it's still inner. Inner does not change. It's still 2x plus 1. And then to the power of 3. This was 4, and I go down to power. So far, so good. No questions. And then from here, I have to always remember
Ooh, I forgot my
dinner. You starved. All right, so dinner is what? 2. All right, so then I can simplify this if I want. I don't really need to. I'm just going to plug in right away. And when I plug in, I'm going to get f prime of 0. That is going to equal 4 times the quantity of 2 times 0 plus 1 to the power of 3 times 2. And we can do this in our head. 2 times 0, 0. Plus 1, 1. 1 to the power of 3, 1. 1 times 4, 4 times 2 is 8. Questions? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Did you get it?
I got that one wrong, but because I forgot my dinner.
Okay. Yeah, that's an easy mistake to make, and now you know how to correct it. Always think of dinner. Sometimes your dinner is 1, but always be doing dinner every single time. All right, so now we have f of x is equal to a trig house cosine. We're doing the derivative, and we're plugging in pi over 9. So first, let's do the derivative. F prime of x. When I do the derivative, that's going to be equal to, it's going to be negative sine of 3x. So once again, all right, phone sting just happened, and it's going to be negative sign because C, the letter C stands for change, so I'm going to change the sign. Cosine always turns into sine always turns into cosine. It's always the positive or negative that you have to worry about. This one is negative sine of 3x, and don't forget your dinner. Dinner is what? 3. The derivative of 3x is just 3. And I'm going to immediately plug in pi over 9. So then you have to deal with some radians, which can be a little bit hairy, but here we go. F prime, I'm plugging in pi over 9 in the place of all the x's now. So this is going to be negative sine of 3 pi over 9, which reduces now to pi over 3 times 3. We'll always have to do that times 3. So where is sine of pi over 3? Where is pi over 3 to begin with? Everyone point. Where is pi over 3?
Wait, that's opposite for you. There.
No, you can do it for you. I can think backwards. Yes, that's pi over 3. Pi over 3, if I'm looking at the wall, here's 0, pi over 2, pi over 3 is right there.
The way I thought about it is like, here's pi, and then cut that into thirds, it's here.
That's a great way to think about it. Yeah, everyone do that. Pi, cut into thirds. Is it 1 pi or is it 2 pi? We're doing with
Is that
one.
that pi circle you taught us in pre-cal?
Yeah. So pi over 3, just for the notes, is right here.
You need to do the
This angle right here is pi over 3. And I have to take the sine of that. Is sine the y coordinate or the x coordinate?
Y.
It's the y coordinate. Write it down because we forgot. Everyone write it down. Sine gives us y. Sine gives y. Cosine gives x.
Remember that because n looks like an upside down y kind of.
There you go. Cosine will give you x. So we are doing sine, so I'm doing the y coordinate. But the y coordinate is kind of hard because this is a special right triangle. I'm going to enlarge that triangle, draw it down here again. So here's that triangle. Actually, what am I doing? The triangle should look like this. So it comes out here. You always make your triangle to the x-axis. I apologize for that. So there's my right angle. And this angle right here, we know that's pi over 3, which converts to what degrees? Is it 30 or 60?
30 because it's 1/3. It's 1/8. Oh no, it's 60.
It is 60. A good way to do it is if you draw it correctly, it's the bigger angle is 60. Another way to do it is you can do pi is equal to 180. 180 divided by 3 is 60. Always be able to convert pi and 180 back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Pi is 180 degrees. Pi radians, 180 degrees. 180 degrees, pi radians. We're all okay? Going back and forth, back and forth? All right, so if this is 60 degrees, we are on a unit circle, which means this is 1.
Wait. Oh no, never mind.
If the hypotenuse is 1, because we're assuming it's a unit circle means a length of 1 around here. If we're on a unit circle and this is 1, how do I go from the hypotenuse to the short leg? I do what I, it's actually
Divide
2.
by 2.
It's divided by 2. So this is 1/2. And to go from the short leg to the long leg, I
Square by 3.
multiply by the square root of 3 and I get square root of 3 over 2. There it is. So I'm looking for sine of pi over 3 and then I'll make it negative. Sine of pi over 3, is that the x or the y? It's okay. We'll get it. Sine of y. Sine is y. Which one is the y? 1/2 or square root of 3 over 2?
What?
Which one is y? 1/2 or square root of 3 over 2? It is indeed square root of 3 over 2. So this is now going to evaluate. I'll do this in a different color. This is now negative. I still have the negative sign. Negative, and then sine of pi over 3. This whole thing right here turns into square root of 3 over 2. So negative square root of 3 over 2 times 3.
Can I just say I got this one by like eliminating, not by actually doing the work.
Okay, nice. And there it is. The answer is E. Again, we've finally moved on from the level of homework to AP. It's like a giant gap. You have homework down here. We're now on AP questions. You can even see that this is slightly yellow on my screen. We copied and pasted it from a yellow book. So this is a real AP question.
I wish I had pre-cal before I had this class.
I know. It does make it harder. Maybe the first unit should have been dealing with trig. That way you would be ready for this, right? I need to make that note somewhere. But yeah, because you guys are the guinea pigs. I know it's going to be harder on you guys. Sorry. All right, number 4. So if f of x is equal to x, then I have to take the derivative and plug in 5. That should be nice and easy. The derivative f prime of x is what? Shout it out. It was 1x, so it turns into just 1. And then if I plug in f prime of 5, if I plug in 5, it's still 1. There's no x to plug into, so it stays 1. Answer here is C. All right, at the very top of your page, correct out of 4. How many did you get correct? Hold up your fingers. All right, so the goal here is to not make the same mistake and just get better and better. So you want the same score or better for the next one. So it's a high bar for you, Claire. You have to get all of them right for the next time. Gio.
Question. So, are we going to take a pretest before the test?
Of course, yeah, every single time.
We'll study
We're
that.
gonna have a study group like
All right, cool. So that concludes this video. All right, and self-check 2.2. We gave ourselves 10 minutes to reset the timer in case it goes off. All right, perfect. All right, so number 1, we have to take the derivative. So if I take that, it's going to be f prime of x is equal to, the 2/3 comes down in front, 2/3 at any time. If you just raise your hand, I will slow down. X squared minus 2x minus 1. The integers is still the same. This is going to go down to the negative 1/3 power. Don't forget your dinner, times 2x minus 2, all in parentheses. And then I'm going to immediately plug in 0. So when I do f prime of 0. That is now going to be 2/3 of 0 minus 0 minus 0 minus 1 all to the negative 1/3 is equal to, not equal to, times 2 times 0, which is 0 minus 2. Negative 1, you are allowed to cube root negatives. You can't square root negatives. So the cube root of negative 1 is still negative 1. And if I divide that, if I do 1 over negative 1, it's still negative 1. So this whole thing is still just negative 1. Are there questions about that? No questions? No questions? All right. So that's negative 1 times negative 2, and it is indeed positive 2 times 2/3, which is a positive 4/3. Final answer is A. So 2/3 times a negative 2 times a negative 1 is a positive 2. So 2/3 times 2 is 4/3. Yeah, I'll just leave it like that. All right, let's do number 2. If I have the natural log of square root of x, I need to do the derivative. So f prime, I'm just going to write up here because I'm running out of room all the time. So it's going to be 1 over the square root of x. And then don't forget your dinner. Square root of x, by the way, square root of x, can be rewritten as x to the power of 1/2. So the inner is square root of x. That means the dinner, the derivative of the inner, is the square root, the derivative of x to the power of 1/2. So the derivative of that, the 1/2, comes down in front. It's x to the power of negative 1/2. And I need to simplify that. So I still have 1 over square root of x. Let's simplify this guy. Times, it's going to be 1 all over 2 x to the power of 1/2. And that's going to be equal to, this is the square root of x. So I have 2 of those. It's going to be 1 all over 2 times the square root of x times square root of x square root of x times square root of x. I think we can all agree that that is square root of x quantity squared. Square and square root cancel each other out, and that is equal to x, so it's 1 over 2x. And where is that? C. I forgot to do number 1. For number 1, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down. What was the mistake on number 1?
I didn't take the dinner, I just put 1 and dropped them.
Okay. Gio?
The last part, right?
The mathy part, right? Just the numbers. Okay. Number 2, thumbs up, thumbs down. Gio?
I messed up my square.
Mess up your square? Okay. So it's just an algebra mistake. Okay, and then number 3. We need to take the derivative and plug in pi over 3. Point to pi over 3. Ready, go. Where is it? Pi over 3.
Right here.
Good job. Using Claire's method. I like it. I'm going to use that from now on. I'm going to call it Claire's method 5 years from now. It'll be cool. So f prime of x, I should write down, f prime of x is going to be equal to, it's going to be cosine of x. S stands for same sign, so it's going to be a positive cosine of x. And now I need to plug it in. So when I plug it in, f prime of pi over 3 of pi over 3. Everyone pointed to it correctly. Pi over 3 lives right there. And pi over 3, if I'm doing cosine, is that asking for x or y?
X.
The x coordinate. So there's my right triangle. If I enlarge that right triangle right there, choop, choop, choop. I'm looking for the x coordinate down here. I know that I have a hypotenuse of 1. How do I go from the hypotenuse to the short leg? Divide by 2, so it's 1/2. And I'm looking for that. That's 1/2. There it is, B. And number 4. I have that ugly guy. We need to take the derivative and then plug in 0. So when I take the derivative f prime of x, I then get, it's just 1 over that giant inner, which is kind of ugly. So it's going to be 1 all over that inner, which is x plus 4 plus e to the negative 3x. And then I shouldn't forget the dinner. The dinner is, derivative of x is 1. Let's do this all in parentheses. Derivative of 4 is 0, so I could say plus 0, but I'm just going to forget about it. And then the derivative of e to the negative 3x is e to the negative 3x. So plus e to the negative 3x. But e to the negative 3x is a whole other function, so I have a dinner inner. When I take the derivative of e to the negative 3x, while the doubter is e to the negative 3x, the dinner that I multiply by is negative 3. And then I'm going to immediately plug in 0 without, whenever you can plug in something, plug it in as soon as you can. Don't simplify. You're doing too much work. So f prime of 0, I'm plugging in 0, and I get, this is all on the top. So I'm going to deal with this second half right now since that's the numerator. It's going to be 1 plus e to the power of 0 e to the power of 0 times negative 3. That's the top, and the bottom is going to be 0 plus 4, so I have 4 plus e to the power of 0, because 0 times negative 3 is 0. E to the power of 0, anything to the power of 0 is 1. That's 1. That's 1. So 1 plus negative 3 is negative 2. And 4 plus 1 is 5. Negative 2/5. Where are you? A. I forgot to ask thumbs up and thumbs down. Number 3. Number 3, going backwards. Thumbs up, thumbs down. What was the mistake, Stego?
I did this on the one axis instead of
Ah, darn. Yeah. Okay. We'll get that next time, though, right? Number 4. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Gio, what was the mistake?
I guessed on that.
Guess on it, Claire?
I forgot that the power of 0 is 4.
I make that mistake so often, I can't tell you. I still haven't learned my lesson. We're out of here, by the way, at 11:18. We still have 13 minutes left. All right. So if I come back here to number 5, we're doing f of x. So f prime of x, we don't even have to plug in anything. The derivative of sine is cosine. Is it positive or negative? S stands for same sign. It is positive. So cosine, still have the same inner, e to the negative x. Don't forget your dinner. So I'm going to multiply this by dinner. The derivative of e to the negative x is e to the negative x. And I have a dinner inner, which is negative 1. So doubter with the inner, dinner, dinner inner.
So now you simplify, right?
Then I simplify. So I know that my answer is going to be negative, so let's cross out all the positive things. Choink, choink, choink. And this one is missing an e to the negative x, so the correct answer is e. All right, questions on anything that we've discussed today? All of Self-Check 2.2, all of Self-Check 2.1?
Can you scroll down?
Yes. How are you feeling about these questions? Fist of 5, all of these.
About calculus.
0, 2, and 5. 4.5, okay.